Hello, and welcome to the Lord of the Rings and Other Fantasy channel. We are here to discuss all things about Middle-earth and other fantasy novels and series as we please. I have vast knowledge of much of fantasy and some of sci-fi like Ender's Game, and I will discuss and answer any questions that anyone has. How do I have such vast knowledge? It's because I have the One Ring, and when I put it on, I have knowledge and mastery over most living things. Not all living things, but most living things. So today's topic and the opening topic for this channel is what is the oldest living creature in Middle-earth? Now, there are some ground rules that we're going to lay down. For instance, we are not going to count Eru or Luvatar because he's God, and God is older than everything. The Anur, which is the Valar, and the Maiar are the offspring of his thought. So we are going to leave God basically out of this discussion. We are also not going to count the Valar or the Maiar in this discussion. So people like Gandalf, Saruman, Sauron are not going to be included because they come from the outside. And therefore they are older than any real living thing in Middle Earth. For other reasons, we're also going to disqualify Tom Bombadillo because no one really knows what he has. In fact, he put on this ring and he didn't disappear. The ring had no effect on him. So he's just weird. So we're going to leave Tom Bombadillo out. So of all the, let's say, creatures that aren't somehow divine or just weird like Tom Bombadillo, which ones are the oldest? Now we have generally four races and every other race is derived from them. So we have basically four races. We have elves, like this elf here. We have Ents, like, kind of like trees, but tree people. We have dwarves, whose father is Durin the Deathless, and we have men. All the other kind of races like hobbits are probably derived from men. Orcs are derived from elves that Melkor tortured and made into orcs. So those four are the competitors. Men, the race of men is not really a competitor because I believe I actually know men awoke at the beginning of the first age. And elves awoke 3 ages before that in the years of the trees. So therefore, elves are definitely older than men, so men are out of the picture. So now we have dwarves, elves, and Ents. Now there is Treebeard, the eldest of the Ents, and he actually recited kind of like a little poem saying of how the age goes. And he first started off by saying, first of all, the eldest elf children, and then he goes on a couple sentences, and then he says, Ent the Earthborn, old as mountains, and he's the oldest of the Ents. But he does say the eldest are the elf children, so I'm going to guess the first elves are actually older than, maybe slightly older than the Ents, because Luvatar, our god, had deemed that the elves would be the first awoken of his children, probably the first sentient beings in the world. And since I consider Ents sentient, I would say that the first awoken elves are probably slightly older than the Ents. Now, Ents could have been trees before, and then they just evolved into Ents, but they did not gain sentience until the elves had awoken. So of the elves, who are the oldest? So we know of a few that were the first awakened. There was Ingwe, he is now the leader of all the elves, and he sits below the mountains in the land of Amen, right below the Valar. So he is the leader, high king of all the elves, and he himself is the leader of the elven branch known as the Vanyar. He is still alive. There is Finwë, who was the leader of the Noldor, and that is basically the leader of both the Nodar, I think. No, it's not the Sindar, but just the Nodar. But he got slain by Melkor before the First Age began, so he is dead, so he's no longer living, therefore he cannot be considered in this equation. Now, there is Elwë, which is the leader of the Telari, which eventually the leftovers became the Sindar. So, but he also got killed by the Dwarves because of a similar, one of the jewels, a Silmaril, in the first age. So he is no longer in this picture either. There is also Olwe, which is, I think, a brother of Elwe. And when Elwe got entranced by Malin the Maya, then Olwe took over leadership as the leader of the Sindar and led them to the Blessed Land. So Olwe, and right now the two that are alive, Olwe and Ingwe, are probably the oldest of the elves. And I've already mentioned why I think they should be considered a little older than the Ents, because Treebeard did say that the elf children in his poem that the elf children are the oldest. So Ingwe and Olwe. But there is a twist to this, because if you remember that the Valar Ayul, he couldn't wait for the elves to awaken, so he created his own race, known as the Dwarves. When Iluvatar found out about this, he confronted Ayul, and Ayul made a giant hammer to smite the Dwarves, with tears, of course. But Iluvatar saw that Ayul's heart was actually true, and he just wanted to make life come true. So he excused the Dwarves from being smited. But he said that my creation must be the first ones to awaken. So Ayul put the Dwarves back to sleep until after the elves had awoken. But technically, he did wake up the Dwarves for at least a little while before the elves actually woke up. And that those group of Dwarves included Durin the Deathless, the eldest of the seven fathers of the Dwarves. So it really depends how you want to look at it. Like, if you want to look at it as the first sentient beings that are not gods or angels in Middle Earth that were permanently awoken, it would probably be the elves in the form of Olwe or Ingwe. Now, if you want to just say the first ones that were awoken without any real other conditions, like they don't have to be permanently awoken, they could have been awoken, put back to sleep, and awoken later, you would probably have to say the Dwarves, because in the lore, Ayule, the smith, the Valar that was a smith, did create the Dwarves and awaken them only for a little bit before the elves were actually awoken. So if you're just saying the first sentient beings to ever awaken, even for a little while in Middle Earth, it would have to be the Dwarves. But if you were going to go with the first that were permanently awakened, it would have to be the elves. However, if you're counting Tom Bombadillo, then it's Tom Bombadillo, because he was here before the first acorn and the first raindrop. And he was actually here in the shaping of Arda, because he mentioned that he came here before the great enemy came from the outside. Some things he might mean Sauron, but I'm pretty sure he meant Melkor. So I'm pretty sure Tom Bombadillo was here from the foundations of the earth. But we don't really include Tom Bombadillo in these calculations, because Tom Bombadillo is just weird. Like I said, he's one of the few things that this ring does not have any effect over. So there's my answer. If you want to count the first ones that were ever awoken without conditions, it would have to be the Dwarves, but the first ones permanently awoken would actually have to be the Elves, the firstborn of Iluvatar. All right, that is the answer to that question. If you have any other questions about Lord of the Rings, Middle Earth, or the Silmarillion, or anything, or other fantasy novels like Earthsea, like the Shannara series, or even stuff like Ender's Game, or like Chinese stuff like Journey to the West, or like Romance of Three Kingdoms, you can ask as well. I am very knowledgeable, and even if I am not, I have this ring, and when I put it on, I have mastery almost over all wisdom of most things. So I can just ask the Precious about the answer to your question, and I will be able to answer your question, because the Precious has all knowledge. All right, that is today's topic. Thank you, and I will see you in another age.